You're listening to the Reflective Teacher Podcast, and this is episode number 13. I'm Selena Woodward, and I'm an English and drama teacher, university lecturer, and with edufolios.org, a big-time reflective practitioner. So how can reflective practice help you grow your teaching skills, fall in love with your profession all over again, and help you nail accreditation and teacher registration with less stress and less work? Well, this is the Reflective Teacher Podcast. Hey everybody, today, episode 13. Let's not worry about it. Let's not be superstitious. 13 is a good number. 1 plus 3 is 4. That's a good numerology number. It's fine. Number 13. What to keep in mind when choosing where to put your portfolio. Now, I don't mean which shelf, which box. I mean, where are you putting all of this evidence? And what questions should you be asking yourself when you start this process? Now, hopefully for most of you, you began this process at university. Portfolios are super big now, aren't they? All graduates tend to have a portfolio to help them demonstrate they've met the graduate standards. But sometimes at uni, whatever you used might not have been the best solution going forward. Some of us are coming at this from a place of brand newness. You know, we just haven't done this before and we have questions. Well, I have your questions here. So let's talk about how you make a decision about where to put your evidence. Okay, so the first thing I want you to think about is, what is your goal when you're creating your portfolio? Is it that you're just jumping through hoops? Like you literally are only doing this because you've decided to go through the process of accreditation and someone has said you have to have one? Is it because you have a uni assignment due and you kind of have to have one? Is that the only reason you're doing this? Or are you doing this because this needs to be something that you want to use regularly, because you want to be the best teacher you can be, and your goal here is to grow and develop your practice? And inadvertently, at the same time, if the thing you're using happened to demonstrate to you that you had enough evidence to go for full registration or proficiency, or highly accomplished or lead, or to submit your graduate portfolio, that would be an amazing bonus. Are you putting this together to showcase who you are as an educator so that you look really cool and interesting for job applications? So do you need something that's going to let you reflect your personality and give you the freedom to showcase yourself? Are you doing this because you want to keep this private, but you want to be able to understand what you're doing well in and what you'd like to grow next? Are you doing it because you want support and you really want to connect with others? All of these questions are really important to consider. Are you doing it just for a process that someone has given you? Are you doing it because you want to grow and develop and be the best teacher you can be? Are you doing it because you want this to represent who you are as a practitioner and you want to show the world how much you care about what you're doing and how much you love learning about what you're doing? Are you doing this because you want to learn and identify where you can grow? Are you doing this because you want to have support and connect with others? Now, you might be saying, Selena, all of the above? Awesome. Great. That is a good answer. A great answer. If it's not, and you're honest with yourself and you say, look, I have genuinely no interest in writing my reflections down beyond the process that I need to go through for this box ticking exercise, then that's cool too. You're probably going to do it the long way around that way, though, I'll warn you. And we'll talk about that in other episodes. But I want you to understand that when you are choosing the platform or the way in which you're going to collect, collate, and reflect on your evidence, you need to think about your goal and what are the barriers that are going to stand in your way. Because you need a space that you can place your artifacts in. So that's your evidence, the things that show where you're saying you've made an impact. Here's the proof. You need a space where you can talk about those artifacts and say, this is why I believe this shows this. You need a place where you can sort your reflections by focus areas and by the standards that you're using. There's 7 standards and 148 focus areas from graduate to lead. And you want a place where you can share the professional you. Okay? And maybe it's to do all of these things, to grow and develop, to showcase, to learn, to know what's next, to find support and connect with others. I want you to spend a few minutes just making a note about what it is that you want to get out of your portfolio. And if you head to edufolios.org/013, you'll find a little guide that you can download there that you can work through as we're having this conversation. So there's a little checklist there of all the things I've just said. I'd want you to be super honest with yourself, and I want you to tick which ones it is that, you really think you need to have in your mind. Okay, so now once you've done that and you understand your goal, like what it is that you want to achieve with this, we can start asking a few more questions. I want you to know that this process is likely to feel uncomfortable. The actual process of reflecting and being honest and true and gathering things can feel uncomfortable. So when you make a selection of a tool you're going to use, you want that tool to not add to that discomfort, right? You do not want something that's going to require you to learn something new that's huge and scary. You kind of want something that's going to make life a bit easier, right? So have a think about what that might be. Do you want something that is super safe that you're familiar with, like a ring binder with dividers and poly pockets to put information in? Do you want to make yourself a website? You're going to go to a website builder like Wix or Weebly and build something from scratch? It's going to depend on how comfortable you feel with all of those things. Okay. Or obviously there's Edufolios, and I've got to talk about it, where we make the website for you and we create all of the things you need for your focus areas and standards. You just press a button, boosh, it's done, and it's up, and you just start adding your evidence. Okay. What do you need? What do you feel comfortable with? Do you want to spend time creating your own website? Do you want that to be done for you? And you would like to be able to personalize it because you still want to showcase who you are. So you want to make it your own, but you want most of that work done. You want to press a button, open an eye and go, oh, great, there it is, done. Have a think about that. Now, while we're thinking about that, I want you to consider this idea of being free. And when I say free, unfortunately, I'm not talking about freedom. Of course, you have freedom. I mean the cost of running this portfolio of yours. A ring binder from Officeworks may cost you $8 and a few bits of cardboard, etc. That's one-time outlay. A subscription with Edufolios for a student is currently $4 a month, $9 a month for a full-time professional, $90 a year, $40 a year. That's an investment. That's okay. Something like Wix or Weebly, Squarespace, these website builders, they're mostly free. There's no subscription cost. And we go there and we build a website. But I want you to consider when you look at that word free, what you're actually getting. All right? Because here's what I will say to you. In my experience as a lecturer at a university where lots of pre-service teachers are asked to create a portfolio of practice online, and their first thing is, I'm looking for something free, they forget to consider their time. Now, even if your time was worth $20 an hour at minimum wage, I want you to consider how many hours you're going to spend on a Wix, a Weebly, or Squarespace creating a website from scratch. Even if you're really good, it's going to take you, 2 or 3 hours? At the very least, if you're really good at this. So that's 20, 40, 60 bucks versus a subscription to something annually that costs you $40 and it's done for you. Also want you to think about that all of these things are businesses. So even though they say they're not taking any money from you, there will be something that has to come from that. And that might be an upsell. So for example, be careful because some of these online platforms don't allow you to moderate comments unless you pay for a plugin. Things like that. You need to be very mindful of that. Okay. So as you're choosing something, if you're choosing something digital, be aware of this idea of free and just make sure that free is also calculating the time you are taking because you're not actually being assessed on your ability to create a cool website. You're going to be looking at the reflective practice inside it. Okay, I just got to say that. I just want you to think about that. When you're choosing something online, you do need to make sure that you can do things like moderate comments, that there is a layer between you and someone commenting. You've got to be able to demonstrate standard 4.5, which is that you can behave socially and ethically online as you ought to, and that you have strategies to manage the online space, like comments, etc. Make sure that those options are available to you. Make sure that you are able to lock down individual posts or pages, so that if there's something there that you want to keep private, you can. And I also want you to bear in mind that when you're using any cloud-based platform, and that's any website, you need to be very mindful around the laws and the policies in your department or your school around what documentation is allowed to leave the secure network of your school site and is allowed to go up into a cloud-based platform. You definitely should not be uploading sensitive documents about students like NEPs, IEPs, whatever you call them, personal learning plans, into a cloud-based platform. They should remain on your school's server. If you're using OneDrive as a school, that makes things a bit easier because you can hyperlink to them. But these are things you've got to think about because you're going to be in an online space. They're all excellent pieces of evidence for 4.5. So put your 4.5 hat on. Think about what you would tell your students if they were making a blog. How are you going to keep everybody safe in this online space? We'll want moderation. We'll want to be able to lock things down and make some things private. We'll want complete control, in fact, over each individual post and page and my whole site. Maybe a password protection. I don't know. What do you feel you need? So if you go to edufolios.org/013, you can download the freebie again, and there's a little checklist again of things that you might want to consider if you're doing this online. Okay, again, have a little moment to think about that. Okay, so now let's think about the fact that what you're doing is filling your portfolio with data, information about your practice and what you're doing. And ideally, the tool that you've selected is going to be able to sort that data for you. If you're doing it in a ring binder, it can be really difficult to see your strengths and your weaknesses against focus areas or standards because depending on how you've organized it, you can't just press a button and ask the ring binder to serve up information. It's not able to do that. It's not digital and it's not electronic. So the only way to do that would be to do a handmade map of what's inside your binder with a reference to someone looking at it. So if you want to look for focus area 4.5, please turn to page blah, 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 and blah. And that would be how you would have to manage that. And I guess by doing that, you would be able to see how many pieces of evidence you had for each focus area. But that's a very manual process. It means you have to have a tool to help you do that. I know that some department websites have an Excel spreadsheet you can download where you can manually log it. But you shouldn't have to do that. If you're using a digital product, that digital product should be able to serve that information up for you. You should be able to enter the information once, and the product should be able to serve up that data in whatever way you need to see it. So think about that, because what is the point of a digital product if it's not going to solve your problem? And your problem is, I want to reflect and I want to get my accreditation, I want to grow. I need to know what this data says about me. So that's what technology does. It solves a problem. So make sure you've got the right technological tool that will be able to solve those problems for you. We want it to be able to help you see what to celebrate and show you what you're avoiding. Now, I'm very open about this. I've said this in a Facebook Live before. I still haven't fixed it. When I look at my data in my Edufolio, and you're welcome to go check out my Edufolio. I will place a link at edufolios.org/013. You'll notice on the front of all Edufolios is something called a tag cloud. So even without looking at my analytics dashboard in the back end, you'll be able to see which focus areas I love talking about because the focus area will be big and fat. It's tag cloud. So the more I've written about it, the bigger it gets. But there are some that are missing. You tell me which ones they are. Hashtag Reflectionist on Twitter and Instagram. Tell me which focus areas Selena needs to be working on. And if you've got any PD suggestions, send them my way, because goodness me, I need to address them. But this is my point. My ePortfolio works hard for me. It does a lot of work for me that I don't have to do myself. And then I can ask you guys to help me find the gaps. I know what they are though. I've probably told you before, but also to guide me as to how I can fill those gaps. And if I was in leadership and I had lots of people using it, I would even be able to find mentors for Selena in the areas that she needs, because I could find another colleague who had plenty of evidence in that who could talk to her, So it's a good thing. It's a bonus. All right, so when you are looking at your portfolio, you are placing yourself as the chief learner in your classroom. And I want to go back to the very beginning of what we discussed 15 minutes ago. What's important when you make a decision about where you want to put your evidence is your goal. Are you jumping through hoops, growing and developing, showcasing your practice, learning and identifying what you're learning and the impact you're having, and what's next, connecting and supporting others? What are you doing? Okay. At Edufolios, the educators who use our platform are educators who are passionate about being the best educator they can be. A lot of them will come to us because they're going through the process of accreditation, and that's where they begin. And then the more they reflect, the more addicted they get to this idea of, my goodness, look at what I've done today. And the more they learn that this is not about jumping through hoops ever, and that those standards are there to support and deepen our knowledge of what we're doing and how we can be better. So when you choose your portfolio platform, take the checklist that I've given you at edufolios.org/013 and have a good think about what it is that you're trying to achieve and what features you're looking for in the platform of your choice. Thank you for listening to this week's podcast. I hope that was super helpful. Obviously, I'm always open to listening to your comments, and you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Edufolios, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Edufolios. And I will be going live talking about this very topic this week on Facebook. So make sure you come and join us. Ask questions, ask as many as you like. I am here to answer them. And in the meantime, if you have a question between those two events, hashtag Reflectionist. We keep an eye on that and we will make sure we answer them for you. Whether you're listening to this podcast well after that live or not, we're always here to answer your questions. Now, next week, next Wednesday, episode 14 is upon us. And the topic for next week is mentoring. Many of you will either be mentoring a pre-service teacher or are perhaps a pre-service teacher yourself. And I want to talk about that relationship. I particularly am going to touch on how mentoring is a two-way conversation and how it can benefit both parties to be gathering evidence at the same time. A mentor should definitely be at least looking at highly accomplished, and of course your pre-service teacher will be working at the graduate level. So we're going to break that down next Wednesday as we talk about mentoring as a two-way conversation. I will see you online very, very soon. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Take care.